This is the pod about
nothing. Welcome to the pod about nothing. I'm your co-host Nic Flair alongside
The Reggolution.
And tonight we've got a special guest with us, YouTube star, the king of cosplay, Mr. Sean Ward. How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing terrific.
Actually,
I'm
Dr. Strange.
casting spells. No, you guys told me it was going to be the cosplay episode, so here I am getting all dressed up. You guys are just dressed up like a couple of cosplay, couple of podcasts.
I got my size T-shirt on. I'm just sad.
Yeah.
These
So
days.
now I think you guys were joking with me, and here I am taking it very seriously.
No, we want to thank you first and foremost for coming on to our show. This is Pandemonium Mondays for everybody that's tuning in every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Nic Flair and The Reggolution will be coming on, bring on a featured guest, and this evening we have the infamous Sean Ward.
Yeah, today
so we're excited that you're on.
Me.
Yes. So we might as well just kick this off, right? Let's get to know
Love
you,
it.
Sean, right? So again, thank you for dressing up. We love Doctor Strange outfit. Now,
gotta make it an extra special occasion.
We might as well start at the beginning.
Ooh.
Right? Now, everyone talks about a story, a journey. It's kind of all like old school, but like, let's talk about your Netflix original docuseries. How did it start? How did it end?
Well, the Netflix docuseries. Oh, geez. Okay. Well, it starts off. Okay. The very first thing you see is like vintage clips of me on Queen Street West in Toronto with my photocopied comic books, selling them to passersby. And that's how I'm paying the rent on like a cubbyhole of a room on Bathurst Street at the time. And then a car pulls up and some stranger sticks his, I guess he's bought a comic book off me before. He sticks his head out, slows down the car in front of me and he yells at me. He goes, "One day they're going to make movies about you."
Oh, really?
True story. So that's how it begins. And then
like what year was that, Sean? Like what year?
Geez, like 2005, 6, somewhere in there, maybe. Long time ago. Whole other life. Like that was me going to college. Like me going to college, getting an education was like making my own comic books and going out and selling them on the street to people for 3 years.
And so your tipping point was when a video of yours of you dressed up as Batman went viral. You were going through.
That was not me dressed up as Batman. I was holding the camera and I did all the editing and put the whole thing together. But that wasn't me inside the Batman.
That wasn't you.
Wow.
Oh, did my little enchantment on you.
Oh wow, Doctor Strange. We haven't Doctor.
He's coming with that.
Strange exclusive.
Yeah, multiverse of madness in more ways than one, bro. No, that was no. Here's what happened with so just to very very quickly. YouTube was this thing that I kind of missed the first wave of it, even though I was really in the world of content creation, because it's almost like I had to learn a really hard lesson about like the way the world is changing. So I had a gig working for a TV show, so all of my creative focus was going into that as YouTube was coming up, and I tried to get that TV show to get on board with YouTube, and it was brand new. It's like, hey, you guys could be the first mainstream brand to embrace this technology, and they'll just throw all the perks at you as it develops. And they were like, no, we don't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry to be able to put our clips all over the internet. I'm like, you don't get it. Whatever. Okay, so the first wave of YouTube passed me by because I was busy doing that TV show gig. So when I started trying to just, that gig expired and I was in a really dark place in life, I started just trying to like figure out a way to like just get myself back on track. I started vlogging every day on my first channel. So it's youtube.com/Sean Ward. And then because it was so filled up with daily vlogs, when I had an idea to do like a sketch or like a more produced or scripted piece, that needed a new home. So I registered the new channel, The Sean Ward Show, in 2010. And then just put up just different things as I had ideas and as I made them. So just the next one of those that I was making was this thing that was supposed to be, are we allowed to say swear words?
Try not to, but
okay. So we were going
not to for the most part.
We're going to make Batman says SHIT, right?
Yeah.
So that's the video that we set out to make. And if you look at that video with that in your head, you understand that was the concept, right? But at the last minute, we realized that trend was on the decline. We don't want to look like we're trying to get on this dying trend. So we just gave it it's a different name and just came up with Batman's Night Out for the moment. And that's what we went with, uploaded it. changed my fucking life. Pardon my language. 3,000 views was like the top video on the channel at that time. So I'm just like, oh, imagine if this video got 5,000 views. What it would do for us if this video got 5,000 views. And it did it in a few hours, because as we uploaded this video, there's a huge life-changing night hanging out with Naughty by Nature, doing the halftime of the Raptors game.
Hip-hop parade, huh?
Hip-hop parade.
Yeah. So I was going to shoot a documentary about them for their YouTube channel the same night that we've uploaded this Batman video. And the guy in the Batman costume was texting me going, it's at 3,000. It's at 5,000. And then when he goes, oh my God, Paul Dini just tweeted it. And then that's when it like started going crazy. But I mean, it got us on the news. And because it was like, The Dark Knight Rises was coming out, so we were like kind of catching that news cycle, and so we just got swept up in that, and so just that video that my biggest dream for it was that it would do 5,000 views, ended up doing 1 million views in a week, and like I said, getting us on the news and all this kind of crazy stuff. So I just kind of made a vow right then and there that just like, this is what the opportunity I've been waiting for my whole life. I'm just going to decide that this is it. And I just like devoted myself full time to trying to turn that channel into something, sacrificed a lot, scrimped, did what I had to do to just like get videos up there on the regular. And then by 2014, that's when I had two things kind of big that happened around then. Number one was at the beginning of January. I decided after the Christmas break, when I come back in January, I'm going to go weekly no matter what. I'm going to take the Saturday Night Live approach of we don't go on because it's ready. We go on because it's 11:30 on Saturday, right? So I'm going to put up a video week no matter what and just see what consistency does for us. And the other thing was that I leaned into the superhero thing, because that's been what I grew up with. That's all I've cared about my whole life, really. It's all that's ever meant anything to me. So I did the superhero videos, and those would always be the ones that worked. And anytime I tried something else, it wouldn't work as well. So something about my kind of like take on these characters was working. So let's just lean into that. And then from then to now, we've kind of just built it into this like monster of a destination on YouTube for people searching for Joker, Spider-Man, DC, Marvel, like these terms, right? And yeah, it's a hell of a world, it's a hell of a business, a hell of an industry that just sprouted up whole cloth out of literally nothing in the last 10 to 15 years. It's insane what you can do on YouTube now, and what anybody has the opportunity to just like get going and build for themselves, you know what I mean?
100%.
So we got some guests, jumping into the channel right now, and they're like, they love the story in terms of, who Sean Ward is. And guys, the ones that just tuned in. So Sean Ward, he got his start writing, drawing comic books, went to a Staples store back in the day, photocopied a whole bunch, sold to a bunch of strangers. But he is, we just talked about Batman's Night Out. That went viral. So he talked about that whole story right there. On top of that, he's the number one most watched cosplay comedy channel on YouTube, garnishing more than 4 million subscribers. Over 4 million subs.
We're going for that diamond play button, dude. 10 million is when you get the diamond play button.
You've got videos out.
I want it.
You've got videos, Sean, that have garnered over 100 million, 200, 300. I believe your top one is at 600 million. When you did a flash dance, 600 million people, 600 million views. That's like 1 in every 10, maybe 11 people on the planet.
And it's still the number one most watched video month in and month out. So it's like still.
I know how to do bed mass, and that tells me that's a lot of people.
Bed mass, yeah. Blast from the past with that, man.
Yeah. All right, cool. So we talked about, obviously, you start with the comic books, and like let's kind of take it back. Like I want to rewind because I want to unravel this onion, which is Sean Ward. If I talk about free comic book day, I know you're featured in that years ago. Tell us about like what does free comic book day, like what is that event, so that everyone understands what it is.
What does it mean to you? Well, here's the thing. So when the movies, typically, when like old Michael Keaton Batman and whatnot would come out, a popular movie you'd see a spike in comic book sales. So around like 2000, that kind of time period, that stopped happening. So people were still going to the comic book stores after they'd leave from seeing Spider-Man or Hellboy or whatever, but they wouldn't buy comic books. They'd be buying toys and collectibles. So the industry at large decided that they're going to have this event that's going to get people into comic book stores and turn them on to the culture and get them reading stuff. So it turned into a thing where all the publishers release. Oh, there goes my cape. All the publishers release
Doctor Strange's cape's got a mind of its own. It's okay.
That's right. That's right.
It's authentic. I like this. Keep rolling with it.
It'll be back.
No, as I said, so all the publishers put out like specialty free comic book day editions of like their upcoming stuff, right? You know, have a little free comic book day banner on the top. The way I understand it is that like they service the comic book stores buy this stuff at cost so that they can give it away for free, and stores do all kind of things, have signings and giveaways and big sale, right? It's a big like holiday in the world of comic books. So before the whole YouTube thing worked out for me, I thought, well, you know, my career was supposed to be in comics. That's where I thought I was going for like a long time. So I hustled and got this this store called the Silver Snail to have me come and be one of their like featured artists and be one of the people that's like signing sketches for like, you know, the kids and whatnot. And that was a lot of fun, and it just made me feel like a rock star to be over there with, you know, over on this side is some guy that, you know, actually draws Marvel comics, and over here is some up and coming indie comics guy, and just me right in the middle of that made me feel like a big shot at the time. And so you know, doing the sketches, people say they want a drawing, whatever. I'd always do like my kind of quirky comedy take on these characters, even with the drawings. So so those sketches kind of went out, and people still like tag me in photos and like, I remember Free Comic Book Day years ago when you do this for me, right? It's pretty fun.
No, that's cool because you really connected with the people, right? Obviously.
Well, that's what it's all about, right? Connecting with the people is like the main thing, like why we do anything if you're calling yourself an artist or a creative person, right? So connecting with the people is like how you know you're doing a good job. And that's why I loved, you know, the whole thing about going out and selling comic books in the street as, you know, web comics and internet delivery was taking off, was that like, you know, that one-on-one with the person and like making eye contact with them, and the whole like song and dance of like putting it in their hand and not letting them give it back and all this kind of stuff, like all those little kind of like interpersonal things that like with digital delivery, like it's so great that you can reach the whole world, but you don't get that personal touch the same way. Like it's great to hear comments from people saying that they're watching videos in Iraq and stuff like this, but like, you know, it's a different kind of thrill than the thrill of doing something just, you know, one-on-one with something, be able to look them in the eyes. So going to the Comic Cons and all that kind of stuff is I try to keep that one-on-one connection always be part of it in some form or fashion, because even if people are watching all over the world and I'm not going to a Comic-Con in their town, just the fact that I'm going out to Comic-Cons keeps me in that mode, keeps me in that perspective, keeps me part of that world, you know what I mean? Plus that's just the most fun thing ever, is to go to all these cities you've always wanted to go to, and they've all got the big Comic-Con, right? And like that's been the dream for so long, is to just be one of those guys that's like on that side of the table at all these Comic-Cons all over the place. And so all the ones I grew up wanting to go to, I've been to them all now, and it's pretty cool.
Speaking of Comic-Con, unfortunately, in Toronto, Comic-Con was canceled.
Comic-Con canceled everywhere. If they just announced the San Diego one's canceled officially.
That is the Super Bowl of Comic-Cons, for those who don't know. Did you have anything special? You and Super Team Funny. Did you guys have anything special planned for your legions of fans?
Who you think you're talking? Special plan. Actually, we had costume lineups ready to go. We had a whole big booth. We were going to graduate from you know, having a 30-something inch monitor that's going to just run a loop of our videos. We had worked on like a 1 hour like programming loop it's gonna have be part videos. It's gonna have part promotional stuff for new stuff. We were gonna have, here's a spoiler alert for you, we might still do it. A couple of the ladies that are working on the channel these days, they do like, you know, like the silks in the air or like hanging on the hoop, like all that kind of stuff. So we were gonna have these two girls come and they're gonna both wear Harley Quinn costumes and do like a choreographed routine on the hoop, because they've got one that's like the circle and it's like portable, like there's a base and it all. So we weren't gonna ask no permission to get permits or nothing. They always set up our booth at Comic-Con out in the hall instead of on the convention floor, so we've got all this space. Right, so we were just gonna like set it up and just do it in the middle of the aisle and have these girls do the routine on that on the hoop. None of that happened, obviously, because that was last month and it didn't happen. But those ideas are still cocked and loaded for Fan Expo.
Yeah. So, like, what is your most memorable moment of Comic-Con?
Like, just at all?
Think about all the Comic-Cons that out of all the ones that you've been to.
Oh man!
Well,
the first one that comes to mind isn't really a moment from the Comic-Con itself, but I can remember when I was coming home from New York Comic-Con in, I think, 2015. It's whatever one. It's either 2014. Yeah, it would have to be 2015 for the timeline to work. So I'm coming home from New York Comic Con, and I had shot so much good video and so much cool stuff had happened that walking through the airport, like at the end of the trip with my camera bag, and I've got the memory cards and the camera and everything in there. I swear to God, I felt like a character in a movie, like walking with $100,000 in cash, hoping the authorities don't open it up, kind of thing, right? It just felt like I was in a spy movie carrying this like valuable attaché case or something. But yeah, God damn it, if I didn't get home and edit those videos together, and if they didn't just like all of them just killed it. That was incredible. And then stuff happens, like here's one for actually the con floor. It's happened a couple of different ones, but the one in LA was the most ridiculous. So it's my first time at LA Comic Con. I haven't even made it inside the convention center yet, but I see this kid. He's got to be about 9 in a Spider-Man costume, and it's like out on the sidewalk in front of the place. So I run up to him and I say, "Hey, dude, you know, I use YouTube channel and I do a reel of all the Spider-Man cosplayers. Can I get a shot?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure." So he gets the pose on and does this whole thwip. And then after, I go to give him a card. So here's where you see the video later. And he goes, "Oh, I know who you are. I was really hoping I was going to get in one of your videos."
Oh, really? Wow.
You played it right then.
Oh,
But you see, like we kind of talked about the connection a little bit earlier, but that right there in real lifetime form, you've connected with that 9-year-old boy, right?
Oh, it's
talking about him just anticipating your arrival. So that's got to be huge, right?
Oh, it was nuts. And it was just like, okay, now, and also it's not just that it's also the fact that I'm like way the hell out in LA, the other side of the country, the other side of the continent, the opposite corner of the continent. And it's like, oh, they know me over here. Like, of course, yeah, YouTube's worldwide, but what are the odds that with all those people spread out, that any one person, and also for, you know, the emphasis is so much on superheroes that a lot of times people could see the Sean Ward show and not even know who Sean Ward is, just because there's so many of these characters and so many performers. So it's like for him to actually like recognize me and know that and know what it's about, like, that's pretty damn cool.
No, that's awesome, man. Cool.
Your fan base is awesome.
They're cool people, man. They're super cool. Yeah, and I love them because we all got this whole superhero fan geek thing in common, right? So it's we all relate on that level, the whole thing, and it's fun too, because going to the movies and looking forward to the superhero movies coming out, like I said earlier, has always been like my number one thing in my life that I care the most about and that I get behind. It's something that goes back to me being a kid, and like my dad was introducing me to the Michael Keaton Batman movie. And just a little kid when that stuff was coming out, and also like the way that he used to talk about the old Christopher Reeve Superman movie, and he used to show me the Adam West Batman and this kind of thing. And for him, it's just like, you know, a fun thing to watch with his son. But for me, I felt like he was like opening me up to this world, and something about the way that particular shit was going down with the Michael Keaton movie, something about it got in my head that like that this movie was such a big deal to people that adults are just walking around. Their whole life is about waiting for the next Batman movie to come out and going to work and whatever else you do in your life is you're really just killing time until that Batman movie comes out, and that's what everybody's living for. And I just never like had my mind changed about that. And that's how I'm living. So,
but you know what's fascinating? It's like you mentioned that particular Batman. When you actually dress up as the Joker, you pretty much emulate the actual costume of, you know, Jack Nicklaus back in the day, right?
Well, you know what? I get a lot of people compare me to the Cesar Romero Joker from.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you know what? You know.
Okay. Yeah.
Now that you said,
I try to channel like a classic, old school 1940s, 1950s prankster comic book Joker. And that ends up coming across like the Cesar Romero Joker, because that show, that 60s Batman show, so perfectly represented what the comics at that time were about. Like, as far as what they were at the time, that show took what was on the page and translated it to the screen. You could almost argue like better than any other adaptation has done it. I mean, because they didn't have this whole history that we have now. They were just winging it. They thought they were just making a parody of the old 1940s serial chapter plays, whatever. But yeah, damn, that show still, I don't know if you've looked at it recently, but I've got the Blu-ray set and it looks gorgeous still today. But you see how these characters keep getting reinvented for the next generation over and over again. Now they don't even wait. Like they're still making the last movie when they're announcing who's going to be the next guy the next time they reboot it. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
But I mean, as fans,
have you heard that Cesar Romero refused to shave his mustache for the role?
Oh yeah, you can see when I was a kid, I thought I was seeing things. It's like, wait, you're a kid watching it. Like, does he? What am I seeing there? And then, you grow up, it's like, he legit did.
He did not want to.
Because you know why, right?
No, I have no idea.
Because he fancied himself as the original Latin lover. Like that whole movie archetype of the Latin lover was based on him when he was a younger man. So he's like, I can't shave my mustache. My whole Latin lover mystique. It's like, okay, whatever. We'll paint over
the Latin lover Joker.
The Latin lover Joker.
Well, the name like Romero, right? So.
At least we know where Mark Hamill's inspiration. Mark Hamill's inspiration seems like it's from there too.
I think Mark Hamill took that and like that's where he uses his starting point, I think. But again, because you're going back enough years that this history of what these movies are to us now didn't exist yet. Back then, there were still people went to see a Batman movie, but it was still kind of like niche geek stuff if you're going to get into it any deeper than that. But Mark Hamill is actually like a fan. I can remember when I was a kid, I saw some like news show documentary piece about him and his comic book collection, and he was all showing off that he had the first appearance of Batman from 1939. He had just got it. This is the newest one that he just got. He's buying with his Luke Skywalker money, and it's like, oh, he's actually into this stuff. So when they announced later on, that he was going to be the Joker in that cartoon show, even though I was still young, I picked up all these like little tidbits here and there, and they just stick in my brain. So I'm like, oh yeah, Mark Hamill, the Luke Skywalker guy, and he's a comic book collector because I saw it in that thing when I was little, and like just connected it all up, and it just made so much sense that he was going to be the Joker in that. And today, a lot of people would argue that there's one of the most iconic representations of the character. I mean, they still use him for video games, cartoons, all this stuff, right? So that speaks for itself.
Man, I don't know. For me personally, I still feel like, and I know you're going back in history, and I really appreciate that. When I think about Jokers, the one that stands out to me, like, is just Heath Ledger. Like, that performance alone was just
iconic. I mean, what hasn't been said about that guy's performance already, except for the fact that it's a damn shame that he didn't actually get to be around to see that Oscar.
I know,
but like it just tells you something about like how deep he went with it, to the fact that like Jared Leto's Suicide Squad Joker, when we're hearing about him sending dead rats or used condoms or whatever to his co-stars, it's like it's almost like he took the role so that he could play act at being Heath Ledger when he took the role, but without actually going that deep. So he's just play acting at it. I didn't get the sense that he showed up to do a performance of the Joker. I got the sense that he showed up to play act this artiste, disturbed, weird guy, and it doesn't click.
It's interesting because both Joaquin Phoenix and his name escapes me right now. The guy who played the Joker with the damage tattoo, Jared Leto. Both of them are method actors, right? And so they both took two different approaches as to what they felt the Joker should embody or what he should be like, right? And do you feel that we've exhausted the takes on the Joker? Because we have the comedic Joker, we have the deranged Joker, we have the punk Joker.
These characters have been around for like 80 years and more, right? Like you've probably seen how many articles that have gone around in the last several decades about how superheroes are so popular. This is what some academic people say, right? Is that superheroes are so popular because they tap into, in our psyche, in our DNA, the same thing that like Greek gods and whatnot tapped into for their cultures. It's just new words to describe the old stuff. That we have this need to keep telling these kinds of stories. And so this is our new mythology, really, right? So it's on that level that I don't think you're ever going to come up with exhaust the takes on the characters, because they keep on finding new nuances and new twists on it. Like look at the Joker movie that just came out. It's exactly what you would have hoped for and wanted from when they say they're going to make a Joker movie, but at the same time it's so wildly divergent from anything anybody else has tried as the Joker before.
It was super dark.
Yeah, like really I'm not going to put it on to just like have it on in the house when I'm not paying attention to it, just like one of those good time kind of movies. It's not bad.
No, it's not. No,
not at all. But it does not belong in the same sentence with any of the Batman movies we've seen, but it nails it as being this quintessentially Joker thing. You know what I mean? So like, are they going to ever exhaust new takes on Batman, new takes on Spider-Man? In fact, I think the Joker has now kind of joined. The way I used to put it is that like, we're in a world now where even if the superhero movie fad trend, whatever, goes away, the reality will still be that we will be in the process of either making or releasing a Batman and a Spider-Man movie at all times. Like they're never ever gonna.
They're not gonna divert from that.
They're never gonna slow down and let it breathe. Let the last guy's performance breathe and settle in before we bring the new take out. No, that guy was last year, the new guy's next year, and we just keep it rolling. That's how it is now. And I think the Joker's on there as well. I think with or without Batman, like the success of that Joker movie proved that you could just spin that out a million different ways. And the minute one stops making money or they don't want to come back to do it again, you bring in the next guy, a new take on it. What comic book haven't they riffed on yet? You know what I mean? And it'll just keep on going because A, it's a money machine, and B, because people like me just like keep on going, give me more, give me more, give me more. It taps into something really, really, really deep in our psyches, and it's exciting to watch this phenomenon. I feel like in a lot of ways, like whatever the hell, like it's almost like the whole reason why movies ever existed was so that they could one day flower into this thing that is these special effects, nutty things that like use that giant platform of spectacle to laser focus on like these real deep things that are in us, the heroes that we wish we could be in our day-to-day lives. Maybe, just maybe, I'm going to go see this movie and it's going to give me something that I'm going to remember. It's going to trigger something in me. So the next time I've got a difficult decision to make, maybe I'll be the hero in that scenario, even if it's only heroic, even if the stakes are only heroic to me, kind of thing, right? Like, I just think that there's so many layers that it's tapping into, that most people, when they're just buying their ticket and filling their face full of popcorn, are not thinking about, are not aware of, don't even care about. But it is working on that level, even if they don't realize, you know?
I love how you mentioned that about being like the hero within your own world, within your own vicinity, within your own space, right? So taking that, what you see on screen, and then applying it to your life. You know, especially now at a time where, you know, it's a challenging time for everybody across the globe, right? With the whole pandemic. Now, you know, Nic Flair and I have had our struggles as well when it comes to content creation. So what do you think about that? As you know, we're trying to be heroes. You're a hero, and you wear multiple different faces and characters that you represent on your show. How do you maintain that momentum during a time when people need that connection, they need that engagement, but there's a lot of fear at the same time? How do you kind of
big issue, right? It's such a big question, because here's the thing. In the current pandemic that we're in right now, I'm extremely blessed for the fact that my business is primarily based, almost entirely based, on these YouTube videos going out into the world, and enough people are watching them that the ad revenue from the ads that are put on those videos turns into a business. Extremely blessed that way. But it wasn't always that way, right? So I can think back on my experience as a street artist and making my comics and whatnot, and like post 9/11 or like post 2008 economic crisis and all stuff like that. Like, I was on the other side of it for those, you know, crises. And the main kind of thing that I would try to get across to somebody who's experiencing adversity through what we're going through now is almost like, if you can have that attitude to just get kind of one level up from it. And if you're realizing, okay, so the adversity is the hand I've been dealt, take that as just the facts of the matter. What can I do? How can I spin it? What could I be doing right now to, even if it's not going to improve my situation immediately right now today, maybe I could be putting work into something that's going to pay dividends down the road. So now is a great time to, like, you know, be starting on projects that you've always been meaning to get around to, or developing talents that you've always wanted to refine, picking up new skills that you've always wanted to learn about, right? Like, that's really what this time is all about. If you could just see it as such, like, everybody's lucky in a certain sense that anybody who's like out of work or having a hard time with things right now, like, the government has set up all these systems to help people, and like we can make a case one way or the other about if it's enough, if it's fast enough, or but the fact is, it's a big world out there full of a lot of people that seem to care, and people are going to get looked after, right? If you work backwards from the assumption, this is kind of the trick that everybody's got to do in their brain, I think, even when there's not, you know, dangerously adverse situations in the world, just in your day-to-day life, it's like you got to tap into that whole thing of just like, what is the blessing right now? What could I be doing that's going to improve the situation? How is this a blessing? And then even if you have to struggle, even if you have to make it up, even if you have to dig real deep and just pull out of your ass what the blessing might be, that's enough, because you'll be proven true later. right? It's the boldness of the decision to treat it as a blessing in the here and now that actually makes it so that it was a blessing the whole time. It's how that's the fifth dimensional level of it, where time doesn't exist and everything's happening at once. I'm getting a little crazy on you now, but what I'm trying
No. Crazy is fine. We love crazy.
Right on, man. Because especially with the creative thing, right? So if people can look at it as like, hey, they're dealt the hand that they're dealt in life, what is the blessing? So we were talking off air a little while ago when we were doing our mic check about like anybody who comes out of this period that we're in right now and is still saying, oh, I just don't have time to slack off on learning to play an instrument or finishing painting your picture or finishing writing your novel. That's the big thing, how I'm looking at it for everybody, whether you're up, whether you're down, you're rich, you're poor, you can pay the rent or not. What you've got right now is this blessing of time to just like go as hard as you can at something. It almost doesn't matter what, as long as you're going hard at something. And just plant some seeds now. Like, you're not going to go out and crowdfund for something right now. But what you could do is build a mystique and build an audience around something so that when life comes back online, you've done all that groundwork, and then you can activate the crowdfunding or just, whatever. Right? I'm just making this up off the top of my head. But that's how I would really want to encourage people to try to look at it, is just like, it's almost like I picture myself back in the day. I had a mattress on the floor. I didn't even own a bed. I'm up on a third floor. It was basically the inside of a dormer window, a glorified closet, really. And I was paying $360 a month rent on this little cubby hole of a room with a mattress on the floor. And that's where I lived. And back then I kind of had this thing of like, you know what? Money's going to come, money's going to go. This is me, like I barely afford to pay the rent, right? I was like, money's going to come, money's going to go. I'm just going to make a decision to just not be stressed about money anymore. If I got it, I got it. And if I don't, whatever. I can't pay the rent. Whatever.
But during those times, because I love that you brought it back there. During those interesting times in terms of the struggle that you were on, right? Mattress on the floor. Where was your mindset at? Like, what was driving you? What was the driving force? Like, what were you saying to yourself? What was the story that you were saying?
I'll tell you what it is. Because so I didn't go to college, university, nothing, right? Didn't really take high school, never took school very seriously. I graduated, technically with like a 50-something average, right? Because I was always that kid who's like, they know he's smart, but he's not living up to his potential. Really, I just didn't have the wisdom to say, well, give me something to give a shit about and maybe I will, right? I wasn't engaged. I had this whole private world. I've never lacked for wanting to. I've always had ambition. I've always had this lust for learning, but like all of my learning has mostly been self-directed. So I'm trying to study the history of, this is in high school, literally like 14, 15 years old. I'd be off on this whole tangent because I'm studying the ins and outs of the counterculture comics, hippie shit from Haight-Ashbury in the 60s and whatnot at an academic level. I'm like, these are the books I'm taking out of the library, but it's not the art history that they're trying to tell me to pay attention to in school. But I'm like, I'm not on that wavelength. I'm doing my own thing over here. So what it was after school was done, I'm out in the workforce for a couple of years. I'm doing a telemarketing job. I've done retail, warehouse, a lot of this minimum wage-ish kind of work, right? Yeah. So I just had this day where I'm on the phone dialing for dollars like you do. And there's something, I'm looking at the clock, and something clicked when I'm looking at the clock where I understood all of a sudden, like I never had in life before. I understood this whole thing about time, and time's going around, that clock's going round and round and round, and the time that's gone, I'm never, ever going to get back. And all of a sudden I had a picture in my mind of like the path that I was on, this workaday schlub who just goes and just kills time putting in his hours, but isn't particularly great at it, doing a job he doesn't really care about, only doing it for the modicum of a paycheck, whatever. And it lit a fire under my ass of like, oh my God, I am not on a path that leads anywhere to becoming this great world-class artist guy that I've swore up and down my whole life. Like every little I'll show you one day I've ever had with anybody, if I don't get moving right now, they're going to end up having been right. And I can't have that. I shall not stand for it. I have to prove that I knew what I was talking about all those years. So I just stopped. It wasn't even like I quit. I just couldn't bring myself to go to work, not one more day. So I immediately okay, this comic book I'm in the middle of working on right now, that I'm picking at a little bit here and there, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to do literally nothing else until I finish it. So I finished it. I photocopied a few copies of it. I wasn't selling on the street yet, but showing it to people here and there. I didn't think the art style was all all that good. So the next one, I'm going to make it up as I go along and just do it as fast as I can. It looked like a step above Scribbles almost, but it was a second finished thing. And then a third, and then a fourth. By the fifth is when I started actually going out selling on the street, and it just started as a goof, right? I'm just waiting for my buddy to pick me up in a car, and as people are walking by, I'm going, hey, you want to buy a comic book? To strangers, and a couple guys stopped and said, sure, how much? And that started me going like, okay, if I sold 2 in 15 minutes, how many do I got to sell in a day? Times how many days in a month? Oh my God, that could pay the rent. Boom, I'm instantly going to be a professional artist now, right? Like that's just, so where the mindset was like, I'm just like convinced that I'm doing this like holy mission on a mission from God kind of thing. Plus I was in the work I was doing and in the message of it, right? That just like this is it's a calling. It's this thing that I have to do. It's this like you treat like it's the mental model of like these books that you could buy that people think are hokey, you know, 1 Minute Millionaire, Think and Grow Rich, all this kind of stuff where they tell you
favorite
about
book, Think and Grow Rich.
You got to have it in your mind. It's not about like just luck happens to you and you're successful. You got to know what you want to have, what you want to have to your life to look like and be like and all that kind of stuff. And you have to see it like a destination on the road, right? If I'm driving on the highway, if I say I'm going to drive to Florida, I can't see Florida for most of the drive, but I'm confident that I'm heading in the right direction. Right. And that's what this whole thing about building a life, building a lifestyle, all this kind of lifestyle design stuff is about is just like you build the mental model of just like who you're trying to be, the kind of life you're trying to have. And it's just this process of constant revision and constantly trying to like just make sure that you're heading in that direction.
Jeez.
Profound.
Sean Ward has dropped, ladies and gentlemen, for those that are listening, watching, Sean Ward just dropped some gems for us. Like if you think about the model, if you think about the formula that he's given to us, especially during a time like this where it's so unique, and he's talked about, you know, the path, he's talked about time, counterculture, leveraging this opportunity as a blessing. He's given you guys the nuggets that you actually need to build momentum for yourself. So if you're listening out there, please take it in.
I think two key things that Sean touched upon were A, starting, and B, finishing, irrespective of whatever the result was. A lot of people have great ideas. They don't start their ideas. Then there's the certain section of people that might start the idea. They don't complete the idea because it's not up to a certain level. And there might be perfectionists and whatnot. But finishing the idea in whatever form that it comes across in is crucial, because then you can get to stage 2 and stage 3. And Sean was articulating, Sean was saying by stage 5, or by comic book 5 is when he said, you know what, I got something here.
Well, even then it wasn't even like, oh, I've got something here. Like I didn't think I was like, you know, Marvel caliber thing that I was making, but it just like it thought that I could use it as a vehicle to like be this guy, be this like almost like put this persona on like it was a set of clothes of like, who is this guy that would be kooky enough to make these comic books and go out and sell them to strangers and have that razzmatazz kind of, hey, yeah, come check this out, whatever thing going on, right? Like a little, here's a little like little thing I can show you. Like I haven't owned a pair of blue jeans in like 15 years probably, because so long ago it clicked as a thing that I could differentiate myself, just because first impressions are so important. Okay, I'm just going to stop wearing blue jeans because something will just, even if they can't articulate it, people, this is like a conscious thing that I did back then when I was really trying to like design who this person is that I want to be, right? I'm like, if I don't wear blue jeans, then automatically I'm going to set myself apart from everybody else in a room, because it's people who subconsciously pick up on this little signal that like, especially as they see it again and again and again, right? This kind of thing, right? It just like, I bought this like jacket that looked like it was part of like a Beatles suit. I was like, oh, okay, so people will see me in that jacket and just like, I'll start thinking of me as like that guy that dresses like the Beatles. Okay, cool. That's a fun little reference to make, or just whatever. Right? Just picking up these little things that can make yourself memorable and make people think about you. So my whole thing back then was to just like, my goal was I'm going to stand out here on the street corner, sell these comic books and just sell enough of them until I could pay my cubbyhole of a room rent. But I'm going to do it. Why am I doing it as long as I'm doing it? Well, I want to do it to the point where I can be confident that every single person in this city, if they don't own one themselves, guaranteed they know somebody who does. That's how ubiquitous I wanted them to be. And then from there, it just started building on itself and started putting on the release events for new issues. And then that's when I started making little movies to put on a screen at the release event and booking bands and those kind of stuff. And then some people from the late night TV show, started knowing who I was, and got me to come over and do some stuff for them. And on I went. That all crashed and burned. Had to reinvent myself. Did this whole YouTube thing, and here we are.
Here we are.
but is it amazing, like the journey and path that you went down when you were trying to produce those comic books pretty much trained you, or was the training grounds for what you've embarked on in your YouTube career? Wouldn't you say that?
What, the comic book thing?
Yeah.
Well, the comic book was
going through that experience, going through the challenges, going through the ups and downs, kind of prepared you for what you are meant to be. And right now, as the Sean Ward Show, right? It's kind of built the muscle for you.
Well, you know what it did for me is it helped me so that so I came up, doing the comic book thing and putting on the events and thinking I'm the shit because I'm this TV guy. And then when that all crashed and burned, and the hit that I took emotionally, spiritually, all that kind of stuff, it put me in a place so that the failure back then ended up being a blessing that I could never have predicted. Yep. Because when the YouTube success started to happen, had that all not happened in the past, I might have been the guy who, like, the success might go to my head. I might blow all the money ridiculously. I might try to get too flashy. I might try to, like, get a big head about what I'm doing and change up my formula too much, and it would leave the audience behind. Like, all these kind of ways that people sabotage themselves when they haven't had any experience with success. I might have done all that, but instead I got to get all that out of my system when the stakes were lower, so that when the real success happened, I was ready for it.
Yeah, you were prepared.
So right. There's a whole other testament of, like, try anything, and even if it fails, it'll end up being a success or a blessing later.
Yes,
it all builds.
So we have a question from Fly Off Entertainment TV. He wants to know, Sean, how did you take it from street level to mainstream?
Here's the thing, though. I still don't think what I'm doing is mainstream. Like, yes, I'm doing these characters and working with brands, doing placement deals, whatever. Like, I've literally gotten paid to help promote a DC Warner Brothers movie. Like, even with all that, it's still that I feel like I'm just me and my friends making our camcorder movies on spring break from school, like we did back in the day. And, like, always, anytime I've tried to, like, do something that feels like I'm doing a real thing, or I'm doing a corporate thing or whatever, like, anytime I've had an attitude where my street art style, my guerrilla filmmaking style doesn't actually count, and I should, like, aspire to be something more professional, whatever that means. Anytime I've started tiptoeing in that direction, it's always gone wrong for me. And things have only ever gone right for me when I just do them my way and be this weirdo artist guy, and then people respond to it. So I guess the answer to that question, it's really a lot of just, like, kind of knowing who you are, or at least who you're trying to have people think you are, and then how economically and powerfully you can live that out. And just be that persona, be that success. So just kind of design who that successful person is that you're trying to be, and then just, like, waking up in the morning, what would that guy have for breakfast? What kind of coffee does that guy drink? What's the first web page that guy looks at in the morning? This kind of thing, right?
So we talked briefly on opportunities during the pandemic. And one thing that you've created for yourself and for your channel is you've created but you've created a forum for watch parties. And I've never seen watch parties prior to the pandemic, right? And so it's a way that we're all connecting within each other now. Now, what do you attribute for the need for people to be a part of a watch party?
Oh, well, the watch party for me was a thing that I could do just in a big hurry, because this whole, everybody's got to stay home. Life is shut down. And I think a lot of people who make content or entertainers in some form or fashion, I think a lot of those people just felt this compelling need to be of service to people in that way, to give them something to do, something to occupy their attention, something to give them a laugh, right? And so a lot of people have stepped up to that challenge, right? You see John Krasinski doing his little Some Good News show, all kind of celebrities. Like, just today, I watched DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince had done
a live
little
concert
on Zoom, right? And I watched the YouTube video of it, and I was just like, I'll never not be sad that I missed the live of this, whatever. So the watch parties for me was just, okay, the whole studio's shut down. How I make videos now is so wrapped up in, like, the team that we've got and the studio that we built and all this kind of stuff. So it's going to be difficult to just like start cranking out a whole bunch of videos right now. So instead, what I'll do is I'll work on a video that will be something really substantial instead of a whole bunch of just dashed off ones. And the thing that I can do quickly is rally the community around this shared interest and this shared passion, and we'll just hang out. We'll enjoy each other's company, and we'll talk, and we'll shoot the shit, and we'll talk a little bit, about this and that, and have the movie just be like the thing that we rally around, the thing that brings us together. So just put it out on the Instagram story. Hey, what's your movie be? Did a couple of rounds of voting, and we've done 3 of those so far, and they've been big successes.
The 3 that you've picked, so I know that Ultron was one, Age of Ultron was one, Batman Returns was the other, and the third escapes me right now.
Into the SpiderVerse.
Into the SpiderVerse. That's actually my daughter's favorite movie.
Okay, nice. How old's your daughter?
My daughter is 6 years old. It's the first movie she'll watch like front to back. Multiple times. My
daughter's 8 months old, so she's not watching nothing.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, because then she's gonna start talking. And you have to listen to her.
So those movies you picked are very interesting picks. So when you think of like the original trilogy of Batman, or the original, I guess the first 2 Batman, Returns is very different from the first ones. Returns is very much more Tim Burton-esque, if that is such an adjective.
That was Tim Burton going crazy.
And Ultron, I've seen you saying in the intro before you loaded Ultron. Ultron is actually one of your favorite Avengers movies, even though critically it's not one of the favorites in terms of people enjoying Ultron. A lot of people say it's because a lot of the material was cut out of it during the director's cut. What is it about these specific picks that you made that you felt resonated?
First of all, it's got to be said that I didn't really make the picks. I just let the people vote on them, and then
that's cool. So that's that engagement.
But of course, I coach it along. I wouldn't put one for them to vote on that I didn't actually want to watch, right? So it's a little bit of a cheat that way. But Ultron, I was glad when they picked it, because I feel like that movie's underappreciated in our genre, and I think that it suffered a little bit from. Like Marvel hadn't established itself yet as this unstoppable, unkillable, undefeatable movie thing, right? Because it's every movie they put out in the MCU has been like a home run. Even if it didn't hit critically, every single one of them made money, was iconic, all that stuff, right? So, but we're taking it back to an era when people still wondered if Guardians of the Galaxy could work and thought that was going to be their first flop, right? So there was still a thing where it's like the first one would come out, so the first Avengers came out, and there's a certain kind of snob, like the people who are drawn to be movie critics. I mean, I don't want to cast aspersions or nothing, but you have to be like a little bit of a nitpicky, overanalyze things, take things too seriously kind of person to even want to do that job, right? That's almost like one of the skills that you need. So that kind of person in the early days of the MCU would almost be like, they have to, because nobody wants to wear their heart on their sleeve in this life. Everybody's trying to outcool each other. So it's like you got so impassioned and so excited about that first Avengers movie. It's almost like they had to crap on the second one to prove that like they're still rough, that they're not a big softie. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. And I think Iron Man 2 suffered from that a little bit as well. But I think Ultron, the reason why I love it so much is because it kind of planted a lot of the seeds for what the Marvel movie thing was going to turn into, because the whole idea of doing 4 solo movies and then all have them come together to do the team up movie for the 5th movie, like that was such a revolutionary idea back in 2012 that by the time you get to the next Avengers movie and it's like how it steps up to the thing of where do we go from here, we've already kind of like reinvented what cinema is and how these movies can fit together and what we can do with this art form. We've already reinvented that. So where do we take it now? And Ultron, I feel like, even though there was a couple of movies in between, Ultron was what felt to me like the one where they were really stepping up and saying, you thought that like 4 movies that lead up to a crossover was something? Ultron,
we're going to do like 20.
Really, I felt like our Ultron was like the actual legit first step that led towards what Endgame was. That was them going, you don't even know how deep this is going to go, dude. And so many little threads were started to dangle out in that movie. Some of them didn't pay off until 6 to 8 years later, right? And this
they did make, from what I remember, they made reference to the Infinity Stones. Nobody really knew what they were. They knew the comic book fans knew what they were, but the movie going public didn't know what the Infinity Stones. They had no idea, right?
But that was the first time we kind of saw them all together, and that was the first time we had the notion of like, oh, the MacGuffin in these movies isn't just the blue box. The blue box is one of 6, and they haven't even started rolling out the other 5 MacGuffins yet. Oh my God, how long is this going to go on for? And then the answer is 20-something movies.
So, hypothetical question, Sean. You're on the spot right now.
Yeah,
you have to pick a big bad for the next series of MCU movies. Who are you going with?
Well, here's the thing. Because I'm so huge a Spider-Man fan, I kind of feel like I can't wait to see what they do with Norman Osborn and make him be like that huge overarching villain. Because I heard
Norman Osborn, yes,
specific as the Green Goblin, right? Because I had heard that Thor: Love and Thunder, when the rumor was that Christian Bale is going to be brought in as a villain, and the rumor mill started going, "Ooh, what if it's Norman Osborn?" And I'm just like, remember in the end of Spider-Man: Homecoming, the Avengers were moving out of Avengers Tower, and then in Far From Home, that building was under construction.
Right.
Setting it up for in the third one. Oh, look who's the new occupant of it. So a lot of people think that's going to be the Fantastic Four, and I'm just like, please God, no, please let that be Norman Osborn. I want to see the Fantastic Four, but I want that building to be occupied by Norman Osborn. That's my hope.
Okay. So heard it here first. Norman Osborn, you would big bad.
Well, I want to see the Sinister Six. It's a very selfish answer to the question.
Sinister Six. If the Sinister Six came out, do you think that it would be an MCU movie, a Sony movie, or a joint venture?
Well, it has to be a joint venture because Disney can't do anything with Spider-Man or his Rogues Gallery without Sony being involved. So it can't be just an MCU thing. But Sony also knows that they can't compete with Disney. If they were to say, okay, forget you, we're going to go back to making Spider-Man movies on our own, maybe they could make a few bucks. But they know those movies are not going to be anywhere near as big as they would be if they're part of the Marvel thing. So that relationship between Disney and Sony seems to be like they used to be really at odds. And it seems like now that they've made some money together with Spider-Man and the team ups they've done, they understand like this is a big we got a golden goose here. Like, let's not just end it after the contracted 6 movies. Let's extend it, and they did. And the pride is going to let it go on forever now.
How do you feel about a live-action SpiderVerse? I know that the Sean Ward show's tackled it a few times.
I can't wait. I mean, because that would mean bringing back, and we were talking about this before, is that part of the rumor is that the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, some people are talking like that movie's going to be like as epic and scope as Endgame, because it's going to open up the possibility for them to bring back like every version of every Marvel anything that's ever been in any movie made by anybody. Maybe they're going to bring back the old. You ever watch that the Fantastic Four movie, the fabled Fantastic Four movie that never got officially released because the special effects were so.
I didn't know about that one.
Okay, this is history for you. Back in the 1990s, there's the indie film producer called Roger Corman, and he makes these like B movies, like direct-to-video horror and stuff. So he was hired by some production company to make a Fantastic Four movie with $1 million budget. And little did anybody have anything to do with the movie. No, it was never going to be released. It was that the studio, if they didn't start production on a Fantastic Four movie by a certain date, they lost the rights. So they said, we'll blow $1 million to keep the rights by making this movie, and we'll not tell them that we're only making it for that reason. So that movie's like bootlegs of it exist all over the place. You can probably watch it on YouTube. But imagine if you use CGI to bring that version of the Fantastic Four into the multiverse. If Tobey Maguire shows up as Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield,
yeah.
Big shout out to Tobey Maguire.
Captain America.
You know what?
We all asked
Reg loves Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I like the new guy. I think the new guy is great.
I like Toby. He was so nerdy and just so quirky.
I like the new guy nails it. The new guy nails it. Holland. Tom Holland. Tom Holland nails it.
The best.
I think he's the best. I think he's the best doing it, man. He's
so
like
two versus one. This is what we're doing.
2 versus 1, man. 2 versus 1.
Just favorite movies ever. Like that just feels like such a perfect Spider-Man movie. It's perfect as Spider-Man. It's perfect as fitting Spider-Man into the MCU. What they did with the Vulture to make him cool and relevant was awesome.
That was cool.
I love that movie. I probably watched that movie more than any other movie in the last 3 years because I watch it on planes. I put it on just to have something on. It's one of those ones that I start to know it by sound as much as I do to watch it.
So we feel about Back to the Future.
So everybody that's watching, if you haven't figured it out, Spider-Man is pretty much Sean Ward's favorite superhero. Would you not say that?
Guaranteed, yeah, by a wide margin.
So what did it mean to you when Stan Lee passed?
Oh, geez, that's a big thing, because like he's in his 90s, right? So you can't exactly call that tragic or unexpected, but at the same time, it really sort of like put a pin in this. It's weird to talk about, because like, where do you even begin? Like, how does one guy come up with the dudes who created Ninja Turtles? They just created Ninja Turtles, and they're doing great. They've made a lot of money, and anybody would say that they, impacted pop culture. George Lucas made a lot of movies, but he made Star Wars, right? How does one guy come up with all that stuff? I don't know. I think that he demonstrates a lot of the principles that we've been talking about on this call, in terms of just cranking out a lot of work. Not all of it is going to be the best. Not all of it is going to be the most successful thing you've ever done, but it's all going to fit together, and it's all going to be its own thing, and it's all going to add up to something later on. And yeah, it's crazy how, like, I just found out that the reason why he did all those cameos, it wasn't just that they were having fun putting him in the movie. He actually had it in the contract. So he had it in his contract.
Brilliant.
Brilliant movie that Marvel ever makes, they have to have their deal with the movie people include him doing a cameo.
Good for him.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Decades ago.
One of my favorite Stan Lee creations, just because of how deep the rabbit hole goes with his story, is how he created the X-Men.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's nuts. The way that he created his thinking behind the X-Men is ridiculous. Now that Disney has the rights, or Marvel has the rights from Fox, what would you like to see incorporated into an X-Men movie that was not there prior to now?
Well, in the Marvel universe, we've seen the present day, obviously. We've seen the last 10 to 15 years, because these movies have been around that long. We've seen them go back to the 90s. We've seen them go back to World War II era. We haven't seen them really do the 60s. So what I really want them to do is, when the time comes to introduce the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, those should happen together. If you go back and you look at this book you ever heard of a book called Marvels?
No.
You know artist Alex Ross?
I personally don't.
So Alex Ross is famous because he does these very like realistic looking, his art style, he paints everything watercolors, and it has this like Norman Rockwell kind of look to it, right? This like glorified Americana, but photorealistic in a certain kind of way. And so this guy did an all painted graphic novel back in the 90s called Marvels.
Let me just ask you something really quickly. Did it have any? So I don't know if you remember. You probably do, because you know everything comics. But do you remember a card set called Marvel Masterpieces?
Oh, big time, yeah.
Was there anything to do with that?
No. Well, similar, like the guys who painted those cards and this Alex Ross guy, they were all kind of part of the same movement. So their art was kind of in the mix at the same time, but Alex Ross was like the king of that stuff. Alex Ross did this. He did this painted book called Marvels, and in it, like, it's supposed to be like the early days of Marvel Comics seen through the eyes of this photographer, who's like taking photos for the Daily Bugle and for Life magazine, and he's kind of like documenting this phenomenon of all these super characters that are populating the world. So the way that book did it was that the Fantastic Four and the X-Men were happening concurrently at the same time. So they had the juxtaposition of the Fantastic Four being the celebrities who the public looked up to and admired, at the same time as the X-Men being hated and feared for being different, and how that divergent approaches to those two stories. So I really hope that the movies, we do some kind of time travel thing where we pick the thread up in the 1960s, and the Fantastic X-Men and all that kind of stuff was happening back then, and maybe they fell out of fashion or whatever. Maybe they lived in a pocket universe, and that's why the real world didn't know them about them, whatever. Just, I want that's how I want to see them introduced, is like to explore that dichotomy on the screen in the movies. And then I'm cool with it if you want to use time travel or whatever to bring them up to the present, and now the Fantastic Four can go on adventures with the Avengers or whatever you want to do. I'm cool with all that after the fact. I just really hope that they explore that particular story in that particular time.
That was the intention. That was Stan Lee's intention when he created them, and it's just to see what he did and how he brought that together is amazing. And it's something that's been missing from the present day X-Men movies.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's because like movie people don't understand how it all fits together for the comics people, which is why in Marvel's case, it's every other studio, right? Even though Warner Brothers owns DC Comics, it's still Warner Brothers Pictures. That's a different company, other people thinking they know better and thinking that they're going to adapt the material for the movie audience. Marvel's whole thing and the success of the Marvel movie enterprise is that that's the comics people said, forget the movie people, we'll make the movies ourselves because we get it. That's what went into Iron Man 1. They gambled the company's future on that movie, and it paid off quite handsomely.
Cool. So I know we're running out of time. I know Sean's got his super baby sleeping now, but he's got to tend to. So we're just gonna do a quick lightning round. So Nic Flair and I have like a segment on our show called Red Cup versus Blue Cup. So we're just gonna go through a series of different superheroes, and who would you say would destroy one over the other? So the first one I got is Thor versus Superman.
I'll go Superman on that one.
Cool.
Okay. Second up, we've got Batman versus Iron Man, and we're including fiction. We're including their real life identities as well.
I go Batman on that one.
Oh, Batman!
I go Batman because I think Bruce Wayne would be smart enough and he would know how to stall and delay the proceedings long enough to spot a weakness and figure out how to take this guy. Like I've heard that Batman's superpower is that he's always prepared for anything. And that's, I think, what would come into play. And unless Tony Stark just comes in and zaps him in the first minute, I think Batman would like be able to do some kind of like mind trickery, screw with him a little bit. Like I think Batman would outwit Tony Stark.
Geez, I would say a subset to that question would be Jarvis versus Alfred. What do you got?
Jarvis is also Vision now, apparently. In MCU, Jarvis is Vision. So like
I don't know if you guys were at the theater for Age of Ultron, but that moment when Vision hands Thor his hammer and says, "We got to get moving," like the whole theater just lost their fucking minds. It was insane.
Something similar happened during Endgame when Cap picked it up. Because I saw an interview with Chris Evans when she says, yeah, Cap always had the ability to pick it up, but he didn't want to show Thor up, and so he left it alone.
Yeah, that's what if I ever got the chance to ask the Russo brothers just one question, all I need is the one question. That one question is, did you have that moment in Endgame planned when you did the squeak in Age of Ultron when Cap goes to lift it and you hear that squeak? Did they know what they were doing? Were they setting up Endgame consciously then? Or was it later on when they wrote Endgame, they went, oh, remember in Age of Ultron, we can run with that. You know what I mean? I got to know if they planned it out that far in advance.
Slice Imaging has a question so with Red Cup, Blue Cup, similar concept, Kingpin versus Penguin.
Ooh.
I'll go Kingpin.
All right.
Better.
Nic Flair, you got any others?
Let's go one more. And I know this one's gonna hit close to home for Sean. But let's go and there's no wrong answer here, but Thanos versus the Joker.
Well, that's a little hard to even. You got a guy with like a superhuman.
Would the Joker somehow figure him out? Would he somehow convince?
It's like Thanos Michael Jordan versus Muggsy Bogues.
I think the Joker would absolutely he would actually delight in having his atoms ripped apart. He'd go working for Thanos.
Okay, and then last question before we go. So the Nic Flair and the Reggolution want to definitely come onto your show. If we were to ever come onto your show, what characters would we be?
You want to be Batman and Robin?
This is where it gets
awkward now, Sean. We're gonna be fighting over Batman now. Come on,
we'll be fighting over Batman.
Sidekicks, and one of you can be Robin, and one of you can be Jimmy Olsen. No, I think we got to get you guys fitted for. Where could even? How about one is gonna be Blade, and one is gonna be Black Panther.
Ooh, like that. Life.
Or maybe we do a story where like Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali get superpowers.
Mike Tyson's biting everybody's ear. Everybody's ear.
Oh my God, that's great. That's my.
Oh man. Hey, Sean, we want to thank you for your time. You know, we truly enjoyed this whole conversation, the gems that you dropped, your knowledge on the comic book scene and everything you've done. You truly are a testament and someone that we look up to in terms of this YouTube space because, you know, you're an inspiration for us. We idolize you in terms of getting to that level. And we're just going to continue to watch your movie. And one day you're going to be making a full production movie that Warner Brothers will produce.
Oh, man, and we will be extras in said movie.
Yeah, well, you guys might
we'll just be the guys on the street just walking.
Yeah,
you guys alone to be the guys who make the behind the scenes documentary, and that could be how that's just a rigmarole around having you around to introduce you to the executives. Come by. Have you met the guys who do that about nothing? You got to talk to these guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sean, for joining us.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun. Thanks so much.
Sharing your wisdom with us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Subscribe to the channel, everybody, and new superhero videos just about every week.
Yes. Subscribe, guys, to the Sean Ward Show. Subscribe to Pod About Nothing. Be a part of something.
That's the S.
Oh, the S. All right.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.